Welcome back, everybody. So glad you could be with me here today. Walter at the workbench, a little frustrated, a little tired. So glad you could be with me, though, here today. Originally, I wanted to do a video strictly talking about it depends. And that is the honest answer to almost every question regarding our tasks at hand and the work we want to do. Walter, how sharp does the blade have to be? How tight does the chip breaker need to be to the cutting edge? How flat does the sole of the plane have to be? How polished does it have to be? How, the list goes on and on and on. Okay. Everything depends. Starting from the beginning, what is the task? If the task is building a log cabin, you need an axe. How sharp that axe is the task at hand. If the task is chopping down a tree, it has to be sharp enough to sever the fibers of the wood of the tree. If you're using that same axe to cut the notches, to put the logs one on top of another, it has to be a little bit sharper because now you're working in a tighter fitting environment. Once your log cabin is built and you've got the rafters up and a roof on it, now you have to put doors and windows. Now you're talking about the fact that you need tools that are more suited to straightness and flatness and somewhat smoothness. That's carpentry. So we went from home building to carpentry. Carpentry would also include the trim work, but it wouldn't include fancy trim work. It doesn't include tables and chairs, windows and doors. That would be a task of the joiner, and so on and so forth. And it continues down that path until you get to fine furniture. Okay? That was my original premise for this video. Well, if you recall, go back in the Wayback Time Machine, this Bedrock number 605, was given to me, and it just so happens it is the only plane I have that I could put the IBC blade in because of the thickness. But I noticed something, so I took the IBC blade out and I put the original blade in, and it's still the same problem. You may experience this, so I'm going to try to clarify what's happening to me. See the lateral? Goes all the way to one side, goes all the way to the other. No problem, right? Notice those shiny spots? That's where the lateral is hitting the inside of the center groove on the blade. Why is it hitting there? At first I thought it was bent, but it's not bent, okay? Where's my stick? If I take a straight stick and I put it across my lateral on top of the frog, you will notice that it's higher than the frog. It is higher than the frog. That is why it's hitting the groove of the plane blade. So what happens is, when you put your blade in, well, before I tell you what happens, I want to show you the solution. And I'm going to have to try this. I'm going to take the frog off and go outside, and I'll use some solvent and get in here under the lateral and soak that pretty good. Try to get out any gunk that's in there. And then I'll hit it from the top here as well and work it back and forth and see if I can't get whatever is keeping that from sitting down out. If that doesn't loosen it up so that I can peen it, see there's a rivet there, not this one, this one. That rivet goes through to the casting. Then I'm going to have to drill that out, take the lateral off, and possibly file whatever it is that's causing the lateral to stay above the frog. So that's going to be the solution. But let me show you what happens. So we put the blade set in, sits fine, it's just fine. We put the hood on, lock the hood, retract the blade slightly, and then start bringing the blade forward until it takes a cut. All right. Starting to take a cut on the left, shavings on the left. So I move the lateral over a little to the left. And I'm getting a fairly even cut left to right. But if I wanted to go further, it gets stuck on the inside of the blade. So that's my conundrum. Let me know if you've ever experienced this yourself. So getting back to the original topic of it depends. If you are building a log cabin, or if you're building a door for your log cabin, or if you're building a simple table for your log cabin, you're not going to want to have your plane set to take out 1 or 2 thousandths of an inch at a time. You're going to want it to take some decent shavings. You know, until such time as it's too much for you. So I measured one before. I was right at about 4 thousandths of an inch. That would mean you'd have to do 250 passes with your plane before you plane off an inch of material. So there you go, everybody. Everything depends on the task at hand. So if you're building fine furniture, you're going to want to take those wispy shavings. But if you're doing carpentry, joinery, you're fitting a door to a jamb, you're fitting a window to sash, you want to move some wood, and you want to move some wood fast. That's about it, everybody. See, this is like parchment. You want to see a fun thing to do? You take a pencil and you get a nice smooth wood, not something like spruce, pine, fir, or hemlock like that, something fine grained. And you take your pencil and you write a note like, hi, exclamation point. Maybe put a smiley face. And then And then you take that thicker shaving and you roll this up and put it in somebody's lunchbox. And they'll get that and they'll say, hi. Best thing to use, though, would be something more like a crayon. Pencil is too hard. If you use a Sharpie, it'll bleed through, but we can use a Sharpie. But you got to make sure you're taking a fairly thick cut. Okay, there you go. And then you roll that up, and you put it in the lunch pail. And if it's something like Eastern white pine, it'll be real smelly. If it's balsam fir, it'll be real smelly. And whoever's lunch it's in, they'll get this and say, what the heck? What are they doing putting wood shavings? And then if they're inquisitive, they'll unroll it and it'll say, hi. You could do secret code too, you know, like this here. We could do this. That's about it for today. Your good friend Walter. Like, subscribe, and share. Get out to your workshop. Determine the task at hand. See you later.